Our advice is pretty simple. You want to make sure that you're aware of the external environment that you're operating in. That's very important. So to have a good understanding of the geopolitical risks, the business risks that may be there, the people risks that may be there, the technology risks that may be there. Very important to understand that environment that you're operating in. The second big piece of advice for us to talk about is what are the big trends? You don't want to look at this just over the short term, you want to look at it over the longer term. So when you looked at the changes in the demographic that create opportunities, when you look at the concepts of changing and shifting capital markets where economies are growing and growing, you want to, as a CEO, be well aware of those longer term trends because you don't want to take short term action, you want to take long term action. And once you have an understanding of the trends and the risks and the opportunities, then you need to actually mitigate against those risks. How do you put the right controls in place? How do you put the right trigger points in place? How do you think about investments at the right point in time? And what strategies do you want to go after? And that's where PwC can help provide some advice around that. In addition to then our normal services in the tax and the audit and attestation space, where we provide some additional service above and beyond the advice that CEOs and management teams and boards are interested in actually receiving. That organizations should be thinking about is really do a good assessment of the opportunities and the risks, and to be very smart about investing appropriately for the long term. Because CEOs have a responsibility to actually manage for long-term value in the eyes of the stakeholders. In some cases, it may be the investors, could be the employees, could be the consumers and the like. So it's very important to do that. The second thing that they have to be thinking about is how do they manage for not necessarily just the risks, but making sure they don't miss the opportunities. And that's where trends come in. The next piece of the strategy is to then make sure they focus on what are the things that you need to invest in to capitalize on the most potential. And at the same time, create a culture and a value proposition within an organization that allows you to maximize that investment in those selected areas where it gives you competitive advantage. Audit quality is paramount to PwC. It's the foundation by which we're built upon, and it's been the foundation for 165 years, and specifically in Mexico, 110 years. So what do we have to do? We have to continually invest in the audit business. That goes to making sure that our people are properly trained and we have the right resources to do that. It goes to making sure that we invest in the right technology to make sure that we're actually allowed to and understand the data that's necessary. It's to make sure we've got the right experts that have an understanding of not only the business that we're auditing, but the risks associated with that, and then the audit techniques that are necessary to make it happen. And last but not least is to make sure that when we do find issues, that we put remediation plans in place and we address them as quickly as possible. Every organization has control weaknesses, we're no different, but the reality is you want to address them quickly, you want to get them dealt with, and you want to put them behind you. And this is where, again, our work with our own inspection process, our regulatory inspection process and the like is very useful to identify the areas where we have weaknesses and to make those improvements going forward. We want to make sure that independence and objectivity, which again is paramount to the audit business, is embedded in each one of our professionals. So they actually challenge and have that degree of skepticism to make sure they're independent and objective in the eyes of others when they actually exercise that responsibility as it relates to our audit.